here on VSIN, the Sports Betting Network.
Cashing Out continues with me, Joe Ceraulo, right here on VSIN, taking you through your evening into the early hours of the morning for our friends over on the East Coast. And we're going to take it to the progressive guest line here and welcome in our good friend, gives out nothing but pure daily fantasy value here on this program, Tony Cutillo. Tony, how you doing tonight, my man?
I'm doing good, buddy. How are you?
I'm great. I'm fantastic. Now that you're here with us, can't wait to get an eye on where the value is this coming week, man. I'll tell you what, let's dive right into it because this name you've got here at quarterback, this is not a guy that we are used to talking about, whether it's props, whether it's daily fantasy. Usually we only mention this guy if we are fading him. What do you like, Tony?
Yeah, man, listen, here's the thing. You talk about DFS. Hey, you talk about the value like we talk about every single week, right? And Bryce Young, 4,700, the cheapest quarterback that you're going to get, right? Against a Tampa Bay team who has been horrid against opposing offenses. Since his return, 63% completion rate, up from 51% before he was benched. 5 TDs in his last 4 games versus 0 when he was starting before he got benched. And here's the caveat, 50 yards of rushing in his past 2 games and no INTs. Man, he had 263 yards and a touchdown against a Hall of Fame coordinator in Steve Spagnuolo last week, and now he gets a bad Tampa Bay team. So I am all in, Joe.
Yeah, this Tampa Bay defense, look, I love this Tampa Bay squad, and they're still managing to win games. Well, finally got back in the win column in a big way against my Giants. But this defense, a lot of bend, try not to break. Opposing teams, though, at the end of the day, are moving the ball up and down on Tampa Bay. So if Bryce Young could do it against Kansas City, why not against the Bucs? Hey, interesting here, man. Your running back selections, you've got 2 of them. One of them is a much better value, or I should say, value does not necessarily correlate to price. I should say one of them is a much cheaper price than the other. But what really stands out is that they are both in the same game. So which game are you targeting? Which game are you zeroing in on here?
Yeah, this is one of those great rivalries over the years, right? And we're going to go Chase Brown and Jaylen Warren. Now, first look at Chase Brown, 6,200. We've been in that number before when it comes to running backs with guys like DeAndre Swift and David Montgomery. And this is a pure bell cow now, like legitimately 21 attempts on the average per game for Chase Brown over his last 3, and at least 7 targets per game in an offense that has T. Higgins, in an offense that has Jamar Chase. That just shows you how much they're using him. And his last 3 games production, it's just crazy, man. 248 rushing yards and 146 receiving yards. So that's a guy that I want. And on the other side, listen, I know Najee Harris still gets the name recognition, but Jaylen Warren is the guy. He's getting more passing work week to week to elevate his numbers. Since he gives up 5th most points to receiving running backs, and over his last, 3 weeks, he's averaging 13 attempts, but besides the 50 rushes, he's getting 4 targets, 3 catches, and 25-plus yards. So this is a guy that I look at. He doesn't need to score, Joe, and he's still going to get you good points.
And it looks like that game is going to be in the 20s in Cincinnati on Sunday. So I would say both running backs are going to get a healthy load of carries. Anytime you get temperatures sub-freezing like that, throwing the ball gets a little dicey. That thing gets pretty slick. So we'll see if the running backs end up getting extra carries out there in the jungle. I can't believe this price I'm looking at, Tony. Vikings, Cardinals. I mean, this receiver ran circles around the opposition last Sunday. This is tremendous value. Who do you like Sam Darnold to throw the ball to on Sunday?
Yeah, this is one of those things where I just don't understand. Last week I told you I thought Tua was underpriced at 5,800, and he became a top 5 DFS quarterback, right? So this is where you want to grab these prices. And 5,300 for Jordan Addison, becoming the go-to number 2 guy, 3 touchdowns last 4 weeks, 20 yards per catch over the last 2 weeks. And here's a big thing. There's no secret that he's starting to elevate his game ever since TJ Hawkinson has come back and asserted himself as another target. So you figure you have to worry about Justin Jefferson, you have to worry about TJ Hawkinson. That gives all that space for Jordan Addison, and he's really excelling. And this week at 5,300, there's no reason for him to do the same.
What about in that Colts-Patriots game up in Foxborough? That's a tough one to figure. I will say, speaking of Addison, I love that game from a side perspective. I love Minnesota laying 3.5 at home. This Colts-Pats game, I saw that 2.5, and my initial urge was, oh, I got to lay it. The Colts are definitely a better team than New England. But I don't want to let that game in Miami skew me too much towards fading the Patriots. Now they're going back at home. It's going to be cold. They're playing a dome team. What's your favorite angle for this game, at least in terms of the DFS market?
Yeah, I definitely like. I do like New England in this game. I'm a big Drake May guy, and I know that Richardson's played well, but he's still not that guy to me yet. Like he still has more to prove, and even Jonathan Taylor hasn't been running the ball with as much conviction as we would expect. So looking at the receiving end for New England, one of these guys, the unsung PPR heroes, is Demario Douglas. Right? He's that guy nobody talks about. He's like the garbage guy, right? Steady PPR producer, double-digit points in his last 4 weeks, and he's not touchdown dependent. No touchdowns, and still getting you 10 to 12 points. So if you're in a deep league, if you're playing DFS, a guy's 4,700, here's a guy that, basically gets you your winning ticket that nobody else is starting week in and week out.
I love it. I love it. Sometimes you got to look deeper down the lineup to get some value. Here's another guy with a similar price. You think Bryce Young at $4,700 is going to have a good week? Well, who's he going to be throwing it to, Tony?
Let's team him up, man. Let's team him up with the ageless veteran. Well, I'm shocked. To be honest with you, he came back this year. Like, I thought, here's a guy in his 30s. Like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to go relax for the offseason. No, he comes back on a team that's not winning anything. And what he does is he runs great routes. He's a great pass catcher. And he's instantly the number one wide receiver on his team now on an offense that's starting to gain momentum. And Tampa Bay can't cover route runners, let alone good route runners. So, last week he gets 3 catches, 47 yards, which I really like about that is showing he had a higher yards per catch, which means he can still get out there and get it, Joe. So I think he's going to have a big day and score one big touchdown as well.
Tony, wrap it up with a tight end pick for us. Who do you like this week?
Last week we hit on a really cheap with Zach Ertz, who scored 16 DFS with that late touchdown. I'm going to go Juwan Johnson versus the LA Rams. I always have my weird angles, and the weird angle with this game, before I even give you the stats, is the Rams had such a horrific time stopping Saquon Barkley that I think they're going to over pursue on the running attack with Kamara, which is going to leave that second line of coverage open for a guy like Juwan Johnson, who has a 15 yards per catch average over his last 4 games. And he always has a line of 3 targets, 3 catches, and 35 yards. He's just a touchdown away from giving you that monster game.
Tony, talk to me about that game, because this is one, as I'm trying to mold my Ceraulo pick 6 for Thursday night's episode of Cashing Out. I've got a couple bets that I'm already absolutely all in on. I just mentioned Minnesota to you. I gave that out on the program yesterday. That is my first lock it in play of the week, but I need 5 more to round this out. And there is something unconventional yet intriguing about taking the Saints +3 at home in this one against the Rams. You like Juwan Johnson? I mean, the Saints offense coming off a bye week, little time to prepare. The Rams just got boat raced by the Eagles. Now they have to go on the road to a tough environment, whether the Saints are good or not. What do you think about this game?
This is a tough one for me. It really is, because I'm a big Sean McVay guy, and he's one of those coaches that after a loss, especially after a tough loss, he really gets the troops rallied up, and he's a very good, adjuster, so to speak. So it's going to be hard, but, when you're going to New Orleans after a bye, they get that offense rolling, MVS, Alvin Kamara, the 3 points is kind of low to me, and they can score a lot. So I don't know, man. I kind of like the Saints at home in a very, very close game.
Yeah, when did Sean McVay take over with the Rams? Was that 2017?
Ooh.
Because if so, since 2017, they're the second best team ATS coming off a loss in the NFL. 26-19-4, 58% in that time span.
That's the signs of a good coach, man. Like I said, man, it's a signs of a good coach. So it's all going to depend on what team shows up. Are they still got the hangover from the bad loss against the Eagles, or are they ready to gear it up against the Saints?
Yeah, that's Sean McVay for you. But speaking of coaching, the Saints, these players, they're getting up for Darren Rizzi, their old special teams coordinator. These guys seem to love him, seem to love playing for him. Tony, let's dive into some Thursday, I would say Thursday night, but we got games all day. Thanksgiving props up next. Don't go anywhere. Our guy Tony Cutillo's locked in. I am too. It's Cashing Out with Joe Ceraulo.